it's the end of the road for the man who became the poster child for overly harsh criminal punishments. Marquise Dixon was just 16 years old when he was sentenced to 9 years in prison for stealing a pair of sneakers.
The punishment sparked a lot of outrage and even led to the Raise the Age movement. Now, Dixon headed back to prison again. Ironically, he was sentenced to another 9-year term, this time, however, for gun possession, something he is much less likely to get out of this time around.
Judge, this court is well aware of the facts and circumstances of this case.
And not just this case. In Albany County's Court of Law, Marquise Dixon is famous for his whole rap sheet. In today's case, Dixon was sentenced for being a criminal in possession of a weapon. But let's flash back to the case that made him famous. This is Dixon a decade ago at the age of 16. His criminal history stretches back to 2014. At the time, he was arrested for stealing a pair of sneakers from someone. A judge sentenced him to 9 years in prison for that, an amount of time many called far too harsh for a younger teen to face. The news of Dixon's sentencing triggered protests and eventually changed laws around the country. It became known as the Raise the Age movement, seeking to ensure that children under the age of 18 wouldn't be tried as adults just because of their age. The movement caught on. Dixon was released from prison just 2 years into that original 9-year sentence. His family was ecstatic.
Yes!
Unfortunately, the positive path Dixon was on didn't last long.
Given the facts and circumstances of this case, the criminal history that this defendant has, 2 felonies, 5 prior misdemeanors, the fact that he was only out on parole for approximately 40 days at the time that this took place, it's the people's recommendation that he be sentenced to 12 years determinate with 5 years post-release supervision at this time, Judge.
Dixon wound up in and out of jail over the coming years. His family and supporters were left scratching their heads.
He's not really a bad kid. I don't know what happened to him.
That brings us back to the present.
In consideration of all the statutory factors, sentencing factors, as well as the court's great familiarity with this case and this defendant and his criminal history, I sentence the defendant to a determinate period of incarceration of 9 years with 5 years post-release supervision.
The 9 years Dixon dodged as a teenager is now his future behind bars.
I don't want him to be that institutionalized person like the rest of them. I seen him go out the door and 2 or 3 weeks later, they back in because all they know is what they're taught behind them bars.
His family's fears became his reality.
Mr. Dixon, do you want to address the court prior to sentencing?
No, thank you.
Got nothing to say?
No, thank you.
Well, Marquise Dixon and his attorney say they do plan to appeal this ruling, so there is a chance that he could be out before his 9-year sentence is up if things happen to land in his favor another time.
So more stuff to come here that we can cover.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Steve.